Let's address one of the fears that arose before Congress on Tuesday. Netanyahu strongly suggested that Iran has genocidal ambitions against the Jewish people, saying Iran's regime is not merely a Jewish problem any more than the Nazis were a Jewish problem. What is your response to that?
Well, it is unfortunate that Mr. Netanyahu not only distorts realities of today, he even distorts his own scripture. If you read the book of Esther, you will see that it was the Iranian king who saved the Jews. If you read the Old Testament, you will see that it was another Iranian king who saved the Jews from Babylon. Esther has a tomb in Iran where our Jewish population, which is the largest in the Middle East, visit on a regular basis. It is truly regrettable that bigotry gets to the point of making allegations against an entire nation which has saved Jews 3 times in its history. Once during that time of a prime minister who was trying to kill the Jews, and the king saved the Jews. Again during the time of Cyrus the Great, where he saved the Jews from Babylon, and during the Second World War, where Iran saved the Jews. Iran has a bright record of tolerance to other religions. We have a Jewish member of our parliament. It is totally regrettable that somebody plays such a distortion of reality, not only of contemporary reality, but even of biblical reality and of the scripture to which they claim allegiance.
We were able to find the tweet that he referred to from the Supreme Leader. It happened 7 months ago. The Supreme Leader's Twitter page has, quote, "This barbaric, wolf-like, and infanticidal regime of Israel, which spares no crime, has no cure but to be annihilated." Mr. Foreign Minister, can you understand why Jews and others would take umbrage at that kind of language?
No, I won't, because this is a regime. We're talking about Mr. Netanyahu, who has butchered innocent children in Gaza. We're not talking about annihilation of Jews. We never have, we never will. Because if we wanted to annihilate Jews, we have a large number of Jewish population in Iran who not only live in the country in peace, but in fact have a representative in Iranian parliament allocated to them. So we're not about annihilation of Jews. We have a history of tolerance and cooperation and living together in coexistence with our own Jewish people and with Jews everywhere in the world. If people want to espouse fear-mongering, to fan such hysteria in the world, that's to their detriment. We have said, and we will continue to say, that the regime is a threat to regional peace. This is the only regime with nuclear weapons. This is the only regime that has aggressed upon all of its neighbors, has gobbled territory of its neighbors, is occupying people's territory, is violating human rights on a daily basis. It has destroyed villages in retribution. We're not talking about a normal situation. We're talking about the oldest crisis in our region, which has persisted. He cannot hide behind this smoke screen of trying to portray Iran as a threat, and at the same time try to hide the crimes that they are committing in Gaza against innocent people. Thousands of people were driven out of their homes because of Israeli bombardment just a few months ago. And this was the repeat of what happened a couple of years ago, and that was the repeat of what happened a couple of years prior to that. So this is almost become, unfortunately, a practice that has been going on in our region for a long time, and that is one of the most important breeding grounds for terrorism and extremism in the region. The sense of deprivation and degradation that the Palestinians feel in our region has been the cause of a great deal of anger in the Islamic world and beyond, even in Europe.
So how does Iran want to annihilate the regime of Israel?
We don't want to annihilate. We
don't
want to annihilate anybody.
Tweeted that it should be annihilated.
It should be annihilated. That this regime is a threat. A regime that engages in the killing of innocent children. A regime that engages in acts of aggression. Iran has not invaded any other country. We have not threatened to use force. Just exactly the opposite of Israel. Israel threatens to use force against Iran almost on a daily basis. And it has a record. Of course, if they did use force against Iran, we would defend ourselves, as we have done with great sacrifice in the past. But we are not invading, we are not threatening anybody. We have not threatened anybody for 250 years. We have a record to prove what we say. He doesn't. He has a record full of infanticide, full of killing of innocent people, full of aggression against his neighbors, full of occupation. That does not give him the authority to talk about others in the way he does. We never had a bomb. We will never have a bomb. We're not looking to have a bomb. We do not believe a bomb is in our interest. Whereas he does have a bomb. He has 200 nuclear weapons. He has stood against a Middle East free from weapons of mass destruction. Israel is the single most important obstacle to the creation of a nuclear-free zone in the Middle East. Why nobody makes him accountable for the behavior rather than for the allegations? He continues to make allegations against Iran. He's in no place to do that. He doesn't have the authority, the moral authority to do that. In 1992, he said Iran was 3 years away from the bomb or 4 years away from the bomb. In 1996, he repeated that. Congress can go back to its own annals and review what he said in the US Congress. He said in 2012, before the entire world, before the General Assembly of the United Nations, with that cartoon of a bomb, that Iran was a year away from making a bomb. Now we are in 2015, 3 years, and he's still repeating the same lie. Now we have an opportunity to once and for all put an end to that through this agreement. But if anybody is worried about tranquility, if somebody considers peace to be an existential threat, then that's their problem, not mine.
Well, one of the questions raised is when you put a clock on it, like 10 years, the question then becomes, what happens after that? Why not let this deal, a deal that freezes Iran's sensitive nuclear activity, essentially last forever? Why, if you're not interested in building a nuclear bomb, why not have that go forever?
Because this is, we're not, I mean, we are prepared to freeze anything about nuclear bomb forever because we're not doing anything about the nuclear bomb. What we are talking about is enrichment technology, which is about producing fuel for our own reactors. This is not about a bomb. We are willing to accept limits for a certain amount of time, and then we will be bound by all the rules and regulations that the rest of the international community is bound by, that Israel is not bound by. Israel has not accepted the NPT. Why don't they accept the NPT? If they are, I mean, it's interesting that the most outspoken person about the NPT is not a member. Don't you find that astonishing? Israel is not a member of NPT. And Netanyahu finds himself in a place to preach non-proliferation. He is the worst proliferator of the recent history, and with 200 nuclear weapon warheads, and he's talking about non-proliferation. What we're talking about Iran is a certain amount of time, which we don't believe to be necessary. This is a show of good faith by Iran, not an obligation. We are willing to accept the obligations, not obligations that Israel has not accepted, but obligations that other countries are under, and then some. The NPT, the safeguards, the additional protocol, all other international instruments that prohibit development of nuclear weapons. Because we don't want to develop nuclear weapons. So those that prohibit development of nuclear weapons have no sunset clause. No sunset clause. Iran will not be free from the obligation not to develop nuclear weapons in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years. These are permanent undertakings that Iran undertook when it signed and ratified the NPT, when it will ratify, if we have this agreement, the additional protocol and other international instruments. We are not about to be free to develop nuclear weapons anytime in the future. We don't want to, And we have an obligation not to.
You've mentioned the IAEA. As you know, it says that Iran has been stalling on answering certain questions about past nuclear activity, specifically about whether or not Iran was involved in trying to develop a weapon. So why is Iran stalling on these questions?
No, we're not stalling. The problem is that we have been negotiating within the group of whatever you want to call it, E3+3 or 5+1, about how to proceed. And we have been waiting within this process for the questions that we need to answer. Because as you know, there have been allegations that have been made against Iran, most of them unfortunately produced by Israel. And by the way, it's important to know that Israel is the only possessor of nuclear weapons in our region, is the only aggressor in our region, is the only occupier of other people's territory in our region, and it still has the audacity to go out and make claims about others. The Prime Minister, who is actually responsible for the carnage that took place in Gaza, is accusing a country that has not invaded any of its neighbors or anybody else for that matter for over 250 years, more than the life of many nations. We have not invaded, we have not aggressed upon any other country, all our neighbors, none of them. We have been a force for stability in this region. And it is interesting that people are making accusations against us whose record is disastrous.
Israel, through Prime Minister Netanyahu, actually made allegations to the opposite. It said that, opposite point, it said, he made the opposite point, saying that Iran has become too heavy an influence in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Syria, and is actually starting to gobble up these other nations. So you're saying that Iran has not done that. He's saying that it is.
Well, actually, we have to ask the governments in these countries. Iran has come to the aid of the Iraqi government in fighting against ISIS. It has come to the aid of the government of Afghanistan in fighting against Taliban and Al-Qaeda. It has come to the aid of the people of Syria in fighting against ISIS and Nusra. But I want to ask Mr. Netanyahu, what was he doing visiting a Nusra terrorist in Israeli hospitals? Why is he supporting a Nusra? I'm not running a popularity contest in the United States, but he seems to be doing that, and at the same time he's a bedfellow to the most dangerous terrorists who are fighting against all of us in the world.
Who, for example?
Jabhat al-Nusra in the Golan, where he has been openly supporting in allowing terrorists to come take refuge in Israel, be treated in Israel, in supporting, including in the recent operation in the Golan, with Jabhat al-Nusra. It is strange that somebody has the audacity to charge Iran, which is the only country which has supported steadily the governments in the region against the terror network that has unfortunately been created in our region, has helped Iraq. We came to the assistance of the Iraqi government. We came to the assistance of the Kurdish people in Iraq when the onslaught of Daesh against Iraq started.
Daesh, you're talking about ISIS.
ISIS is a bad acronym because this organization is neither a state nor Islamic, so we use Daesh as an easier acronym. But it is important for everybody to recognize the facts on the ground. Fear-mongering does not help. It is important to look at the realities. Our region is facing a very serious threat of extremism, of violence, and Iran has been from the very beginning. We didn't change sides. We were from the very beginning on the side of those who were fighting these terrorist and extremist organizations, and we continue to be on the side of the government of Iraq, the regional government of Kurdistan, and the government of Afghanistan as they continue to fight these menaces. So it's important for everybody to come to the realization that this is about nuclear technology. This is about scientific advancement. This is about pride of the Iranian people. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. And once we reach that understanding, once this hysteria is out, once this fear-mongering is out, then we can have a deal, and a deal that is not going to hurt anybody. This deal will help ensure that Iran's nuclear program will always remain peaceful.